regular meeting of the Richmond Board of Education will come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bridget, if you could give us our mission statement, please.
At Richmond Community Schools, we provide a quality education that empowers students to be successful in a global community.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Deb?
Here.
Angela? Here. I am here. Kyle?
Here.
Danielle? Here. Margaret? Here. And Sherry? Here. Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
I motion to approve the agenda as presented in attached documentation.
Do I have a support?
Support.
Any discussion? Bridget. Bridget. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the consent agenda as presented in the attached documentation.
Do I have support?
Support.
Any discussion?
In the personnel report, we have 3 new hires. I do not see them here tonight. One of them is Jennifer. She will be the educational paraprofessional at Lee Elementary School Special Education. She will be replacing one of our parapros who is retiring. Christina Schroeder, our lead child care provider, she will begin November 8th. She is replacing Anna's English, who took a position in another field. And then Stephanie Witkowski, she will be the afternoon child care provider. There were no questions or corrections received from the minutes from the previous board meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Walmsley. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Walmsley, a bond update, please.
There's not a whole lot to talk about the bond. We're still moving forward on the punch list items at Lee Elementary School. The side panels were put on the new addition, or the metal panels for the new entranceway to the preschool, as well as the second and third grade entrance. The new auxiliary gym has been painted in the first coat, and the glass that surrounds the weight room will be going in relatively soon. So we're still progressing in the projects. The bids are currently out for the weight room equipment for the middle school as well as the high school. We have a meeting for potential bidders this week coming up, as well as the bids are out for the baseball and softball field from the drawings that originally we talked about in the scope. At the next board meeting, Dan Jerome and Jerry from AUK will be here to present the board the total now scope of that packet, but the drawings are still the same with that. So to begin that summer 2022 project. That's it.
Thank you. During this time, we have a presentation from Preston Trent with overnight traffic.
Thank you. So you guys all should have got a copy of 3 overnight trip requests. All 3 are trips we've done with the wrestling team in previous years, obviously not last year, but it'll be nice to get back to some of that feeling of normalcy. The kids are pretty excited about it. So the first trip is December 17th, staying the night to the 18th in Defiance, Ohio. I know Mrs. Telto, you've been to that tournament. It's a great experience for our kids, getting them on a college campus, getting them around 20 some other teams, mostly from Ohio, and getting 10 duels in 2 days is quite the feat. So that's trip 1. We've done that for a number of years. Trip 2 is a trip we've done off and on, and it's New Lothrop, January 7th, staying to the 8th. And this one's got a little bit of an itinerary to it. The way our roster looks right now, we've got a lot of young kids that we'd like to get some matches. So New Lothrop offers a B team tournament Friday night. So while the varsity is wrestling our BWAC duel, we can send some of our younger kids with some of our assistant coaches to that tournament. And with the varsity being in Yale that night with a duel that'll get over late, we can drive over to New Lothrop, stay the night, and then we save the kids an hour of driving Friday night, and then hour and a half, 2 hours on Saturday morning before they got to compete. So, and then Lowell is another tournament we've been to pretty frequently. That'll be January 21st, staying to the 22nd. Again, another tournament to get our kids some exposure with some high-level competition in the state. So all the hotel information and contact information and lead-up should be included in those documents as well. So,
Thank you. Everybody have any questions? Thank you very much.
all right, thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're just going to have a follow-up to our survey. Sherry?
Okay, since two of the committee members were not at the meeting, we tried to meet up in the last 2 weeks to talk about the discussion we had at the last meeting. I did change one of the questions that Mr. Walmsley had requested, and it made sense to change it the way he worded it. And then we just wanted to have more discussion. We decided to keep it on the Google Forms. It's a format that I know will work. We were pressed for time and the time frame we had with meeting with each other, so it wasn't, it's just a different format. So, and we just thought about the demographic questions. I think either the two board members who weren't here for the discussion, if we just discuss that again and decide whether we're going to keep them, take them out. I know there was discussion about taking them out, which I have my opinions on. If anyone else wants to voice any, and then we can figure out if we want to keep those in or not.
Those are optional, correct?
Yeah, for answering.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they don't have to be filled out.
Anybody have any thoughts on it?
Sherry and I talked about having those demographic questions, and I felt like I'm kind of indifferent to the parent or the teacher, administrator, or support staff category. That one could come or go, I guess. But I liked having those years of experience within the district and years of experience in general in the education field. I felt like those were valid questions just because it kind of gives us an idea of whether they answer that they're a teacher, administrator, or support staff. It gives us an idea of what the newer staff feels, and it gives us an idea of what the more seasoned staff or people with more experience might have, who I was telling her, like my example, in the 16 years I've been teaching, I've been in 3 districts, and I've seen good, bad, and very ugly. And so having that background, I felt like was important, and to know that maybe those people who filled out the survey and said, oh, I have 16 plus years experience, their answers to some of the questions might hold more weight as opposed to somebody who's newer to the district because they don't have as much experience. So that's kind of, I kind of liked those questions, or having those demographics, and being optional. I mean, let somebody skip over it, no big deal, but I could kind of come or go with the teacher, administrator, support staff question.
So you think the years one is more important? I'm
Oh,
letting
absolutely.
it go of like what department. I'm okay with getting rid of that one.
I'm too. That's fine with me.
Yeah.
I kind of can understand where you're going with as far as the year's experience and where things are coming from.
Right. Perspective.
Right.
A new teacher doesn't have as much perspective per se as, the first district I was in. I thought they were golden, and then I went to another one and felt like, holy cow, this is night and day difference, and could see the differences. So I feel like that's a valid thing to have kind of a background on.
There were 3 questions, right, Sherry, in that optional sections? So one is the if we get rid of the administration, teacher 1, leave the year 1, what was the other one?
It was, how many years have you worked here, and then how many years have you been in education?
So those were just two separate
Yeah.
questions.
There's just 2?
Yeah, the
Okay, got it.
years of experience was split up into 2 questions.
Okay, okay. I'm fine with that. Any other input from anybody?
I'm okay with all 3 demographic questions, but I'm okay with whatever majority feels.
On the last question, we have additional comments. Can the selection, I see there's an asterisk, can you just not make that an asterisk? If, I see you put the words right now, and if you have no additional, wouldn't that be like an optional question too? So could you take the asterisk off?
The reason I put it there, I'm the one who typed it into the Google form, but the reason I made that way is because that second page was optional at the top, and I didn't want somebody to just scroll and hit submit. Like, it was just there to kind of say, okay, this is the end of the survey. I want to make sure you've actually read through the page and not are just scrolling and clicking buttons type thing to get through the process. So it kind of calls our attention, hey, there's one on here that you were supposed to answer. So that was kind of my thought process behind it.
Any other input?
Just I've never used Google Forms. If someone does not have Google Chrome on their computer, will the forms still work?
Yeah, we tried. We tried all different ways. I sent it to my husband, who has no Google accounts. We use it in the school that I work in, and one of the concerns was how many people can we get to respond, and would we max out our free Google thing? But we use it as a staff every Friday. And we have over 120 responses. I had 167 responses on count day from my students, all coming within 4 hours. It was no big deal. I talked to another staff member in my school, and she has a Google form that has over 3,000 answers, and she's never been stopped or charged. So we kind of looked at all of those options.
Those would be my next questions.
Yep.
We have approximately 220-ish staff members.
Yeah, well, we use it at my school on Fridays to sign into our staff meeting. We have a staff meeting every single Friday. So we use it to sign in, and like literally all 95 of us do it within 5 minutes, and then the elementary school does it within, and it takes them all and accounts for all of them. So, and we've been doing it for years. I can't say that it's perfect, but.
Logistically, will this, who will send this out? And is there a email or anything that goes in the email text, or is it just the link? Because I know on the first page you have a description of why this survey. But I guess the question is, who's sending this out to staff? And then is there a email text that's going in the email that attaches, I believe, on the packet there's a QR code or a link that would be, I'm assuming would go with the email link that goes out, if I'm wrong.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
We just thought that might be easier to have it that way, but we thought Dad would send it out
As the president.
as the president, and just
It'll go out to our district, my district email.
put a quick note about being just a staff survey, fill out, at your discretion, not mandatory, but.
We're going to try to get it out by Wednesday of this week, and just give it a week.
When you created this, Sherry, you created this as a PDF, right?
Yes.
So the link would be clickable in the PDF, or the staff member could just hold up their phone if they wanted to do it.
I tested it
Yeah.
to make sure it was, yes.
Yeah.
Does the email in Google Docs collect email addresses or IP addresses of computers?
No.
Because I know when I clicked on it this morning, when you sent it to me, I think yesterday-ish, my personal Google email came up in the bottom screen.
Yeah, no, there's a
It doesn't,
thing you can click if you want to collect the email, but it's not ours.
Okay.
So we are not collecting emails.
Okay.
yeah, and I can show you the reports and stuff too if you need. It's through Excel. It sends it all to Excel, so it gives a column for each piece that it collects. But it doesn't collect IP or email. That's why I really liked it. The IP is not traceable.
And I don't know if someone is, I'd be willing to show them what I saw, because that may prevent people, if they know if they log, like I use Google Chrome on my computer.
Yeah, it says you're logged in.
And it says,
yeah.
My personal email comes up. I don't know why. I have to just check something. Guilty. But just I don't know, if someone wants to look at it, I'll be happy to show them.
I think I know what you're talking about, but it's not viewable on our end.
Okay. It might be just, all right. I just want to bring it to attention, because obviously you're trying to get the majority or as many people's opinions as possible. And if personal information is somehow perceived, you may not get it. That's all I was.
That makes sense.
That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, Sherry, you'll get with me later?
Yes, sir.
For Wednesday? Okay, thank you. At this time, we have public comments. Since the last board meeting, I received one email from a parent regarding the health department's mandatory or requirements. This email was forwarded on to Mr. Walmsley, which he addressed. Any member of the public may address the board at this time. Please sign in and state your name. You will have 3 minutes to address the board. Are there any public comments?
Good evening. My name is Jill Manchek, and I am here to ask one simple question of this board. When is enough enough? Where will you draw the line? Over the summer, I brought up Governor Whitmer's blueprint for comprehensive student recovery plan that was released in May. In that plan, it outlines several questionable items on many different topics. Some I'll save for another meeting. Tonight, I wanted to revisit the health-related items and make a couple connections to what is currently happening. Ensuring all students have access to a school nurse, including nurses in key decisions related to student health, partnering with local health departments to disseminate information and make vaccination opportunities available to eligible students, and offering mobile health clinics are just a few that are a little bit unsettling. Keeping that in mind, fast forward to mid-September when Governor Whitmer announced her $1.4 billion Healthy Communities Plan. $45 million of that will be invested into local health departments for mobile health care access, community outreach, COVID testing, and vaccination, as well as hiring 200 health officers. Fast forward again to mid-October. The current administration is anticipating vaccine approval for kids ages 5 to 11, ensuring 28 million doses to be sent out across the country, pending FDA approval tomorrow and the CDC advisory panel approval in early November. In the press release on the White House website, plan is, quote, set up vaccination sites in settings that kids and their parents know and trust, including school and community-based sites. They are going to be launching a massive campaign fully funded by FEMA, targeting kids and their families that will cover vaccine administration, transportation, communication. They will also launch an effort to match districts with vaccine providers who will offer clinics in schools. They will invest heavily in trusted messengers, work with the schools, faith leaders, local health departments, and pediatricians. It is becoming very clear that there will be pressure on school districts to do their part in this campaign. At the last meeting, we were told that we shall and we must follow updates to the contact tracing and quarantine guidelines, and that the choice is being once again taken away from parents. I find it interesting that at the same time Richmond was changing their tune on contact tracing and quarantine measures, St. Clair County rescinded their quarantine order, citing the state budget bill language that threatened funding as the reason. Wouldn't that be the same for Macomb County? I've reached out to them. I'll be headed to their meeting on Thursday to ask the same questions. We were told that $200 fines, misdemeanors, and jail time were a possibility if not followed. Several others and myself have been trying to get to the bottom of this for the past 2 weeks, and to date, the Health Department, Board of Commissioners, and state reps have not been able to indicate, one, that it's mandatory, and two, that citations are being issued. There is no current public health order regarding contact tracing and quarantining, and emergency orders were rescinded in June. Again, I ask, where do you draw the line? We are seeing more and more individuals, businesses, unions standing up for freedom of choice. Where will this district draw the line and say no more? The line was not drawn at masks or weekly athlete testing, contact tracing, quarantining with healthy children, and most recently, you chose to implement quarantine rules.
Excuse me, your time is up. I'm sorry.
That have
I'm Holly Paul. Joe's going to speak on my behalf, so she will have my 3 minutes.
Most recently, you chose to implement quarantine rules that have different rules based on your personal medical choices. In one short year, we went from it's just a mask in the hallway to segregation based on medical choices. What will it be like in another year? Will the line be drawn at having one of the 200 health officers at the schools? Will it be a local pediatrician? Will the line be drawn at when a local pediatrician or a nurse is making presentations at the school regarding COVID? Will it be when the state wants to fully fund a vaccine clinic at school? Mr. Walmsley, you've stated you are not a doctor's office. But if we continue down this path, rather than stand up and say no thank you, it seems we will be offering these services I mentioned previously before we know it. I'll close by saying this. Everyone in this room has the power to stand up for freedom of choice. And 7 people in this room have taken 1 or more oaths to the U.S. and state constitution. Those elected in Macomb, Lansing, and in D.C. work for all of us, not the other way around. By taking a stand for freedom of choice, you are representing all parents in this district and their right to choose what is best for their families. Will it be hard work? Of course. Is it the easier path? No. Not by a long shot, but will it be worth it? 100%. These students, this district, and this community are worth it. Thank you.
I'm reading this for a parent that can't be here, so do you want me to sign my name in or hers? And then I can give you a copy.
Just put her name, please.
Okay.
And then just let us know who it is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If you could write your name next to it so that the minutes will have your name reading on behalf of this person.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So I'm reading this for Danielle Hall, who cannot be here. Superintendent Walmsley and Richmond Board of Education members. My name is Danielle Hall, and I'm the parent of a freshman in Richmond High School and a proud Blue Devil mom. I'm writing to you in regards to the recent amendments that were made to the Richmond Community Schools 21-22 Return to Learning Plan that have resulted in vaccine discrimination and the unnecessary quarantining of healthy students. According to the new plan, a student or staff member that has had close contact with an individual that has tested positive for COVID-19 must quarantine for 10 days or 7 days if they can produce a negative PCR or antigen test 5 days after exposure, or produce a negative antigen test for 7 days unless they are vaccinated. There is no reputable science available to support the decisions to quarantine unvaccinated students and allow vaccinated students to remain in school and participate in extracurricular activities. This measure is divisive and discriminatory. In July of 2021, the CDC released findings that 3/4 of individuals infected during an explosive coronavirus outbreak in Massachusetts were fully vaccinated. The study found that vaccinated individuals carried just as much virus in their noses as unvaccinated individuals. As a result of this study, the CDC reversed their recommendation on mask wearing and changed their guidance, issuing a recommendation that vaccinated individuals wear a mask in public places. Additionally, a study released by Rockefeller Institute in August demonstrated that individuals that have recovered from COVID-19 have broader and longer immunity than individuals that have been vaccinated. This study identified antibodies produced in the bone marrow that indicated immunity lasts for years or possibly a lifetime. Since that time, there have been additional studies produced that further support broad immunity for individuals that have received from the virus. Seems there are far too many public health departments and school districts in this country that only trust the science and follow the recommendations that are good for their political theater. As a clinical therapist that screens children and adolescents for behavioral health service daily, I will tell you that social emotional harm that has been done to students by excessive quarantining and what this administration should be focusing on. I speak with parents daily that describe how their children have suffered and changed since the onset of the pandemic. Grades are down across the nation. Adolescent suicide has risen significantly. Suicide attempts by adolescent girls ages 12 to 17 rose to 50% from March 20 to March 21. This is the real crisis, and it's being pushed to the side by a highly politicized virus that is not a real threat to students. We should not be isolating healthy children, vaccinated or unvaccinated. All of the research available indicates that students are not drivers of this pandemic. Lastly, there is currently no public health emergency order in place that constitutes any mandate or requirement. In fact, the language within the state's FY22 budget has limited states' municipal powers to issue any mandates. Since the beginning of the school year, more than a dozen quarantine lawsuits have been won in this state because there is no public health emergency order issued. I am respectfully asking to see all communication between Mr. Wamsley and the district lawyer pertaining to the recent changes that have made to Richmond Community Schools' Return to Learn plan. Parents were told that no changes would occur unless districts were required pursuant to the order or mandate from the Macomb County Health Department or State of Michigan. A parent in our community reached out to the Macomb County Health Department. The Health Department assured that parent that no mandates have been issued, only recommendations. I'm asking for full transparency that I can be clear and understanding of why these changes have occurred. Thanks for your time, Danielle Hall.
My name is Kelly O'Donnell. Here we go again, or here we are again. I'm sure you're all getting quite tired of seeing us and listening to us. I'm very sorry to report this is the new norm. We are not going away. We are not backing down. We will fight for our children until the bitter end. Up until last year, I naively assumed that the Department of Education was looking out for the best interest of my children. I no longer am under that delusion. We are no longer asleep. While I do believe that we in Richmond have amazing educators who genuinely care and love our children, I see that the greater organization has been slowly guiding the degradation of our society by targeting the most impressionable of our population. The masks, quarantine, vaccine, these are just the beginning. We, as parents, are digging deeper. We're going into funding, sex education topics, critical race theories, social emotional learning, trauma-based learning, Every Student's Seeds Act, the use of Common Core, among other things of the like. Every day there are opportunities to teach our children. I brought my kids to the meeting today to show them what it looks like to stand up for your beliefs, even when it goes against the grain. There's a group in Michigan, BAM, which stands for By Any Means Necessary, that's threatening a lawsuit demanding full vaccination for everyone, mandatory masks, and mandatory testing throughout the schools. Just a reminder that part of the new budget signed, State of Michigan budget for the year 2022 that was just signed, Article 6, Part 2, Section 250, states that a local health officer shall not issue or enforce any orders or directives that require a person under the age of 18 to wear a face mask or covering. I do believe that there are many of you that are trying to do what's right by our children, and that's all that we're trying to do too. The purpose of school is to help educate them, and that's what I would like to keep that at. Thank you.
Okay, either no other public comments, we will move on to the superintendent and legislative update.
I will begin with giving an update from the curriculum. Eric provided me some information that I think the board would be interested in knowing from a curriculum aspect. Part of the state's transition to the Perkins 5 requires that all CTE courses, SIP codes, will be going through an alignment process to move from segments to competencies. SIP codes are basically, you call them the code that's assigned to a CTE program, and then within that program there are what we used to call segments that said you have to cover these items. They're now moving to demonstrated competencies. During this transition and alignment process, credentials will have to be identified that when someone completes a course, they are earning a credential. Currently, Ms. Era and Mr. Berg have been working on the business alignment, which is the first, as well as the health alignment for this year. So for instance, one of the credentials would be to be Microsoft certified or so forth as a completion of the course. So that's one thing that we're working on. So at the end of this, you're going to be receiving and asked to approve revised curriculums in the CTE realm. Data analysis. As part of the requirements for the FY22 School Aid Act, schools are required to report their educational goals. So each year, this year, buildings have to establish their educational goals by September 15th. These goals aren't submitted anywhere, but have to be kept in the school on file. The goals will have to be reported publicly at the first board meeting in February, so she will be bringing a presentation to talk how our students are doing based on this year. The goal accomplishments have to be shared on the website and then again before the last day of school. The law requires the data is desegregated by student grades, student demographics, and mode of instruction, in other words, in-person versus virtual. However, in Michigan, if you don't have 30 students to make a subgroup, you can't report on the subgroup because there's a risk that you can identify the individual student. We currently only have 24 students that are virtual students, so we would not have a subgroup reporting on our virtual. General statements about all virtual, all grades will probably be made, but we won't be dissecting the data. Parent-teacher conferences went well. This past week, we are looking at the breakdown between the number of parents that elected for virtual conferences versus in-person to see if this is something we want to continue for the future as an option for parents. At the high school is currently giving the PSAT to 10th and 11th graders who signed up for it tomorrow. They will also be giving the SAT for the senior class who signed up for it for Thursday. With the pandemic, there's opportunities for students to retake and take, so we are in the process of doing that, as well as the high school is finishing NWA testing. At the middle school, they have a Boo Bash planned for this Friday. They are also finishing up the NWA testing, and student elections will be, student council elections are also coming out. At Lee Elementary School, Ms. Manguni and Mr. Gibson and the Title I staff are currently identifying Title I students to begin targeted interventions. They too have completed the NWA testing, which they'll be looking at grade level data dives to begin looking at where they need to focus their energy. Individual reading plans as part of the third grade, it's not called Read by Grade 3, which we have to identify individual reading intervention plans, we call them IRIPs, have begun to identify students that are at risk of not being able to read at grade level. If you recall, we've been doing IRIPs in the past several years, and last year every single third grader met it and did not have to meet the retention qualifications of the law. Their Halloween parade and trunk or treat is scheduled for this Friday. And Ms. Panguni and Mr. Gibson are ongoing conducting daily walks to really look at the classroom teaching and observations to bring a host of opportunities to have discussion and improve instruction. Legislative update. The legislators last week slammed through the vouchers bill. On Tuesday, October 19th, both the Senate and House passed to establish the Student Opportunity Scholarships. These scholarships are the latest attempt to create vouchers in Michigan, something that is prohibited by the state constitution. Senate Bills 687 and 688 were approved by the Senate Education and Career Readiness Committee first thing in the morning last week and passed by the full Senate by a vote of 20 to 16. Just a couple hours later, not much discussion for debate. House Bill 5404 and 5405 were approved by the House Committee, and an hour after the Senate Committee met, and were the first bills brought up for a vote later that afternoon. The bills appear to be identical in the chamber and would establish a scholarship that would allow the administration of scholarships granting through an organization called Scholarship Granting Organization, SGO, that's defined in the bill. It would be used to give private school tuition fees, summer school, after-school program, private tutor, and other fees related to education programming, all of which are requirements of the public school, but taking public dollars and putting them into private taxpayers. Money donated to the SGO, if people want to donate, they are allowed to and get a tax deduction according to this bill. This program is estimated to eliminate more than $500 million of income tax deductions, thereby reducing the state aid fund as well as the general fund, which amounts to indirectly aiding non-public schools, which is prohibited by the state constitution. We're watching this bill. You should have received a legislative alert today, approximately at 3:30 this afternoon from the MASB. The Senate is scheduled to vote on the legislation tomorrow, Tuesday. Regarding it, I recommend if you have an opportunity, contact your senators and ask them to vote no. This is not good for public education. Legislation on post-secondary information reaches the House floor. On Tuesday, the House Education Committee unanimously passed House Bill 4953, which would require the Michigan Department of Education to develop and update information on post-secondary education for students in grades 8 through 12 by August 1st of each school year. These informational packets would have to include the average cost of tuition, the average amount of student loans incurred, graduation rates of institution, and the most in-demand occupations in the state, along with other criteria. MD must distribute this information to districts, intermediate school districts, and public school academies, and make it available on their website. Districts would have the ability would have to share this with students, but have the flexibility of deciding how they would like to share it. I don't oppose this legislation. I think it's good for students and parents to begin thinking about post-secondary institutions and what it costs and careers going into. And neither does the Michigan School Board Association. The Michigan Association of School Administrators is very supportive of this plan. One more thing.
Okay, sorry.
I'm going to read a prepared statement to the board. It's my only opportunity to talk to the board members all at once at a board meeting. I would ask the board members to just think about what I'm saying. Please don't take this as a personal attack on any board member individually or collectively, because that wasn't my motive. I have tried to remove the emotion out of this, but it's very difficult when myself and my family have invested so much time into this district. But rather, I would ask the board to collectively think about the board and how we operate as an organization. I have deliberated for a long time whether to say anything. However, based on last week and some events that have unfolded previously, and a request for information that I was given, I feel I must make this statement before providing the board the information. Under my leadership and while working with the current board and previous boards and my administrative team, this district is in a much better place than when I inherited it in July of 2014. Enrollment has increased, revenue exceeds expenses, we've had will be 7 straight years of excellent financial audits. The number of administrators and teachers has increased. The number of course offerings, after-school academic programs, athletic positions has increased. Collective bargaining contracts are settled for multiple years. Parents have a 3-year school calendar for purposes of planning and preparing their own schedules. A $38 million bond was successfully passed on the first attempt by a larger margin than the previous bond, which took multiple attempts. However, events over the past several months have been very, very concerning to me and should be worrisome to this board as the liability to this district continues to grow. Let me explain. According to the Michigan Association of School Boards, an organization for which this district is a member of, the school board is able to fulfill its mission when members of the board and the superintendent understand their roles and work together in an environment of trust, mutual respect, understanding, and shared purpose. Both board members and superintendents, in order to develop and maintain this working relationship that will enable the board to get its job done and the school to move forward, must spend significant amounts of time and energy in developing that relationship. In general, it's the board's job to make policy, and it's the superintendent's job to administer that policy. With effective board superintendent teams, each side clearly understands its roles. With previous boards, and the boards and I have addressed our working relationship many times when we've had to deal with personal agendas and for those who fail to respect their roles and responsibilities. It's no secret, I've had many conversations with Deb Machange expressing my frustrations with how we've operated. And I've had many conversations about addressing these issues with board members and I, and not waiting for the last minute surprises. In fact, our contractual agreement requires concerns to be brought to my attention, as stated in my contract. The board individually and collectively shall refer promptly all criticisms, complaints, and suggestions called to its attention to the superintendent for the study and recommendation if individual board members deem referrals are warranted based on the nature of the complaint. This has not happened, especially in the recent complaint made by an employee against other employees in this district. Multiple board members reported after the complaint was filed, experiencing or receiving complaints, but none was brought to my attention. The contract we have goes on to say, the board agrees that it shall work with the superintendent in the spirit of cooperation and teamwork, and shall provide the superintendent with the periodic opportunities to discuss board-superintendent relationship whenever it is deemed desirable by either the majority of the board or the superintendent. An outside advisor will be mutually selected by the board and superintendent to facilitate the relationship and discussion of the relationship between the board and superintendent in the betterment of advancing the best interests of the district. I had multiple conversations and made requests to have board superintendent workshops to build and work on our relation. Based on the information given to me at my mid-year eval, I believe I have a good working relationship with almost all board members. However, there are some that it's not a very good relationship. And some board members choose to use emails to not only attack me and but other board members themselves, such as accusing me of wasting district dollars when consulting attorneys for advice, accusing me of intentionally not registering for classes, accusing me of locking board members out of their emails, accusing me of jumping the gun when I sent letters to the community and chastising me for not consulting the board, demanding responses before I've had the opportunity their ability to gather information, and then make statements. It's no wonder people want things in writing from you. Telling me my word means nothing. Questioning the validity of the district's interview process. When it asks to set up a meeting, questioning what my motive is to set up meetings. Board members wanting to get involved in contract negotiations, which the board exclusively directed me to handle. Accusing me of operating in secrecy. Criticisms and attacks me through emails, making inaccurate statements and accusations without improper facts, calling me shady and accusing me of hiding things behind the board, accusing me of lying, making statements that I operate in secrecy and the board is left to clean up my mess, telling me I've been open with the board and insinuating that I've lied to the public, asking me questions and emails about topics discussed in closed sessions, accusing me of wasting money on investigations that I should have handled. First, that I was not trained in nor have the experience to handle those type of investigations. And accusing me of reaming employees for no basis or specific example, but rather making generalized statements. While most individuals listening tonight may not understand any of the examples I gave or think they mean nothing, taken together over time, these emails and verbal exchanges are unwarranted, unfounded, and unsubstantiated attacks and create a hostile work environment. Coupled with this, the refusal to meet or talk. Can you imagine if I took this position with any employee or parent for that matter in this district? Don't get me wrong, I welcome the board's questions that are focused on the understanding of facts for the betterment of the district. I have nothing to hide. Jokingly in our office, I leave my door open, so if you want to come on in, come on in. I make it a priority to give the board members the information they need to make informed decisions. I try my best. I even welcome constructive criticism for improvement in my craft and what I do. And I want to thank Board Member Casito for our conversation last week. It really helped me focus and think, reflect on my operation. While these are just some of the emails directed towards me, I have also been part of email exchanges among board members that are, in my eyes, and the average person out there who sees them, unprofessional and downright embarrassing as the policy leaders of this district. Furthermore, I believe that the emails have violated the Open Meetings Act. I have asked again for multiple workshops, and I will continue to ask, with the idea that people believe nothing's going to change. Based on the pattern of behaviors and facts, I may have to agree. I have been told by specific board members that certain board members are targeting me to get me to quit. These board members are trying to create an environment in which I will not and cannot work. I have been told by board members that they suspect certain board members are being fed inaccurate information to stir the pot and create opportunities to wrongfully discredit me, all for the motivation to have someone else as their superintendent. In fact, one board member even suggested that the tax I've already predetermined my minimally or ineffective evaluation this December. I have been told by board members that they would love to just tell administrators to stop the rhetoric. While I have no direct knowledge of this, no firsthand experiences, I have no reason to doubt the word of board members, and the written and visible actions of board members certainly support these claims. Over the past several months, I have experienced unruly demands, name-calling, accusations, in what I believe is a hostile environment. I have been told that there is a lack of communication with board members. Some feel I share information with some board members and not all. Running a district requires a lot of time, yet I have been able to provide this board with over 700 email communications regarding district items or issues since January 1st, hundreds of text messages, and countless individual phone calls. I have been told that I am not effective because my relationship with the city is poor. Last I checked, I work for the Board of Education, not the city. Anything that the city has asked for, working with this board and previous board, has happened, from easement access requests to the purchase of the AUD to the use of the school facilities for city festivals and events. I have offered to meet with board members at any time, early morning, late evenings, and weekends. I have made myself available. In the words I received from a recent board member's email, though the context of the email is different tonight, this has to stop. While the voice of this board is done by the vote of this board, not individual board members, it floors me that board members have voted against legal opinions of its attorneys and have violated not only my contract but also the Open Meetings Act. It is public knowledge that the complaint against me by administrative team and 2 secretaries. There's no doubt. In fact, the previous boards hired an independent third-party investigator and found no harassment of administrators or secretaries. While we all know problems occur, both sides are at fault. In the resolution passed by this board, I did everything asked of me by this board to improve my relationship. The personal attacks continue with my ability to take a sick day or a vacation day. Recently, I was informed by a board member that another member questioned why I was not at work on the Friday before Labor Day. The concern was reported to me that while other bargaining groups had to work, why not the superintendent? I would suggest to the board member that you make sure you understand the facts before spreading this information or making assumptions that are not true. The bargaining unit question, I have 2 different contracts. I am a 260-day employee, they are not. I have vacation days, they do not. The bargaining unit was offered the flexibility to work additional days or swap days out before the school day, which they could have done the Friday before Labor, but no one elected to. I often work 12 to 14-hour days. They contractually work 8. I'm in the office almost every single weekend. If there's a concern about my attendance, then please address it directly with me, not behind my back in small groups. It was also brought to my attention that there were board members upset that I did not walk in the Good Old Days parade this year. Well, it really is none of anybody's business why I took a leave day. I'll tell you. I was out of the town assisting my daughter who had surgery while at college. Her surgery was on a Friday, and she stayed with my wife and I in the hotel during that recovery. On Sunday, we moved her back into her dorm room where my wife and I took care of her and got her ready and settled to maneuver in her dorm room and dormitory. The Good Old Days is not a required work day, but every year I have been there since I began as superintendent. And I have attended because of the importance of this event to our community and the district. Understanding that I had a family medical emergency to deal with, I thought they would be more understanding. Maybe the question to the board members should have asked, where was the rest of the organization that did not show up? I was directed not to schedule it as any workday for any employee, as I have done in previous years. You can see the results of not making it required. My job as superintendent is to provide guidance and recommendation to this board. Often it required me to get a legal opinion from the attorney, who ultimately must defend this board. In my last evaluation, I was asked to get a legal opinion by the previous board president. Board members chose to go against the legal advice of the attorney and willfully violate the evaluation process and how they cast their vote. Finally, I met with the board president this week. Well, I'm not going to quote what was said. I'll paraphrase. I was asked what it would take to shorten my contract. What would it take to stop the contract from rolling and for me to retire in 2024? I replied, as any contract the district has with individuals or bargaining units, both sides would have to negotiate the change in contract. Failure to agree upon new language results in existing language remaining. I was then also asked, what would it cost to buy out the superintendent of his contract? The discussion revolved around the fact that some board members do not want me as superintendent and are doing anything and all things to make my life uncomfortable and so that I will quit. If I won't quit, evaluating me out. I came to Richmond with intending on retiring from Richmond. I came to Richmond not interested in increasing my retirement, but to make meaningful, positive change. I can look in the mirror every day and say, the boards I have worked with, my administrative team, the union leadership, and I have done exactly that. President Michon, as you've requested, I have prepared together a buyout of my contract in today's dollars. If the board would like to negotiate a buyout of my existing contract or negotiate changes to my contract, please have the district attorney call me. That ends my report.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we have items of interest from the board. Normally I go last, but I'm going to go first this time. During this past week, we've had several emails go back and forth between our board members and our superintendent on two issues. Mr. Walmsley and I met, as he indicated, on Thursday with the district attorney through a conference call. Several concerns were addressed both on the superintendent's part and the board members involved. We will be having a closed session meeting at our next board meeting to address these issues, to make sure that as a board we are following through and not violating anything. So I just want to make sure that's clear. And also, Mr. Walmsley indicated we do have our trunk or treat this week on Friday from 6 to 7:30 at the Lee School, and the board will be having a trunk there, so come see us. Thank you. Kyle, do you have any other input for the night?
I would just like to say, Brian, keep doing the great job you are. There is an integrity issue on this side of the table, and the first name is not Brian.
Thank you. Danielle?
I don't have anything specific. I know I had emailed Brian earlier and just asked, maybe, do you have that email that you returned? Just so that I had emailed Brian about that health order that you had talked to the attorney about, and so I just want to make sure that everybody hears what I heard.
There is no health order, there's no emergency order. As I said at the August 23rd board meeting, just prior to the public comment section, when I rewatched it today, the requirements that the health department is basing, or the authority, is from Michigan Public Health Code, specifically section 325.175, section 4. This section of the Public Health Code is the basis for which school districts are required to follow the protocols provided by the Macomb County Health Department, often referred to in the document as students and staff with symptoms of COVID-19 or who have been exposed to COVID-19 document, in which we exclude students based on some of the comments you hear during public comment, as well as some of the concerns. The guidance I received from our attorney, and he states, under the Public Health Code, a person who violates a regulation from a local health department is guilty of a misdemeanor punishable by imprisonment for no more than 6 months or a fine of not more than $200 or both. Considering that the health department has mandated all schools provide positive probable cases to the department and implement the quarantine guidelines, a violation is likely to be handled as a misdemeanor because of the violation of the Public Health Code. And I did not write the code down, but further, if an employee has a misdemeanor or felony, they have 3 days to report it to the district. If not, it's an automatic termination by law. I don't have the number, but I will get it for you if you'd like it. So there is no quarantine, there is no emergency order. They're using Public Health Code 325.175, which is what they would use for chicken pox, for measles, and other communicable diseases.
That's all. I'm good.
Angela?
I'm all set, thank you.
Richard? Margaret?
I I guess, Deb, let me ask you, we're going to meet in 2 weeks with the attorney to talk about violating the Open Meetings Act questions.
That and other issues from the emails that were sent out.
Okay, so we're going to now, for the second time in a little over 3 months, discuss again violating the Open Meetings Act. We're going to go another round because we didn't, wait, just let me finish.
Sorry.
Because we all didn't understand it the first time around. So we're going to do it again. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. I find the fact that Brian had to make that statement here tonight absolutely appalling. And anyone who lives in this community and who had anything to do with this district 10 years ago, to say for our superintendent, for the work that he has done for this district and our families and this community, that he had to read that crap tonight is embarrassing. This district was in horrible shape in 2010 when I came back on the board. The sky was falling. We were going to break up the district. We were going to go to Anchor Bay, I think, or whatever the crap was that we were going to do because of leadership in this district. Dr. Olson came and was here a short time and helped us mend a little bit. We passed a bond. Since Brian has been here, the stuff that is going on in this district far surpasses anything that is going on surrounding districts in this county, and I can even say in places in the state. This man has high integrity and cares about every single thing that happens in this school district. And for people to come on this board with their personal agendas and their ridiculousness and forcing me to have to once again go through another meeting to talk about violating the Open Meetings Act, and that we are dragging employees through emails that we have no business talking about them, and talking to people out in the community and our close ties with the mayor, who, by the way, he's an employee of this district, and we're talking to him and we are sharing things that are happening in this school district is ridiculous. And whatever we're going to talk about with that attorney in 2 weeks in closed session, that's wonderful. But we're going to come back out and we're going to report, because there are a ton of people who work for this district and live in this community, who support this school district and the work that Brian Walmsley does and the work that has been done by boards leading up to this board that's sitting at this table right now. It's embarrassing. And whoever asked the question, and I'm sure they won't admit it, but whoever asked the question on this board of information about buying out Brian's contract, you're a fool.
Amen.
Okay, at this time we have one action item. I am looking for a motion.
I move to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve a contract with Digital Age Technology for security access points and entry swipe card readers for an amount not to exceed $86,869.15. Furthermore, the board authorizes the superintendent to enter into a contractual agreement within the scope of the project on behalf of the Board of Education. Consistent with general provisions of the board purchasing policy, the superintendent is authorized to approve change orders on the project that are within the bond budget for allowances and contingency funds. This project is authorized in the application for preliminary qualification of bonds approved by the Michigan Department of Treasury and approved by the voters of Richmond Community Schools, for which funding from the 2020 School Building and Site Bond Series 1 is available.
Do I have support?
Support.
I'm sorry, who was, Angel?
Yes.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I just had one question. Sorry, Ryan, were you going to go on?
No, go ahead.
I just wondered if, is this all just labor?
It's everything.
Okay, because that was just, because it wasn't like,
It's the DAT's already out here doing it. It's approximately about an average of $3,000 per door to electrify, put strike plates in, run the wiring back, etc. So if you look at the number of doors that we've added in the renovation, this is really a process that we started. This is not the existing doors that we had, like at the middle school, the former entranceway, we moved. That buzzer is being moved, we're reusing that. These are new doors or new access points that we've added into the scope of the bond, but it's our total cost of VAT.
Okay, just the, it was just a grand total, so that's why I asked.
Yep, it's a total. I have a breakdown of the breakdown's not in your packet.
It was,
The hardware and
yeah, but there was, you know, if you look at it, it's just a grand total, so that's just why I asked.
okay, because I don't know, it looks like on this sheet here, I don't know if you have that in the packet. On the very back, it says the quote is based on premium shift work, quote is based on the prints and specifications for the drawing. So that's where the work is in that part of it. And it's after hours work, so you are paid a little bit more for the employee who's doing the work.
Brian, do you want to add anything else to what we're doing or what's going on there?
No.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, this is a roll call vote. Margaret? Aye. Angela? Aye. Kyle?
Aye.
Sherry? Aye. Danielle? Aye. Bridget? Aye. Deb? Aye. Motion carries. At this time, there is no further business. The board will adjourn at 8:01.